Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. Today, we're going to talk about if you're a Bywater Solutions partner, we're all going to be upgrading to Koha 2505 soon. So we thought we would talk about what's coming in 2505 and pick some of our favorites out of the list of new features and bug fixes. So stick around and we'll be right back. All right, I'm George Williams. I'm the Next Search Catalog Coordinator from Northeast Kansas Library System in Lawrence, Kansas.
And I'm Christopher Brennan, IT Coordinator for the Coeur d'Alene Public Library.
So 2505, we're going to talk about some of the features that are coming out that we're excited about. And one of the first ones, I'll let Christopher talk about this one because we don't use the acquisitions module. I don't know if you do.
Our library does. I don't personally, but I've seen it in action plenty of times. But I do know that there's been a lot of hype about it. It was actually talked about last year at koha-US
Right.
conference in that was Round Rock.
Yes.
But there's a major upgrade to acquisitions. They refer to it as acquisitions 2.0.
2.0, wow.
And the major thing about this, there's a lot of things that are always going on in acquisitions. And I know Rhonda is probably really excited about this. She's excited because they keep moving that module forward, which is great. But they're including something called the View app. So it's a better management interface. It's supposed to improve the look and feel and navigation of your baskets and your vendors and all that. So there's supposed to be a huge improvement with the interface on that.
Cool. I was just at a training today at one of our member libraries, and for the first time in years, somebody has said, "Yeah, I'm kind of interested in the acquisitions module, so I might actually, hopefully, I can jump in at the beginning of acquisitions 2.0, and I won't have to learn anything about acquisitions 1.0." So that's something that I'm looking forward to. I've never worked at a library that's used the acquisitions module. And so to have one of our libraries say, hey, we think we'd like to do that, is both, well, it means a lot of new work and a lot more of it. But I won't be, for a lack of work, I suppose, learning how to use it and training somebody how to use it. So I look forward to this change.
I think it's a good module. It's worth investing the time into getting to know and use, because libraries can keep track of their spending budgets in it and keep track of their orders and keep track of the people that are placing those requests for those things. And so it has made a lot of ground since we came on in 2012. So
yeah,
it's worth looking into.
I remember in 2012 when we were doing the training on it, and the advice was, if you're not using the acquisitions module in your current system, if you've got a good workflow set up, just skip it. It was kind of the advice we got early on. So
interesting.
Let's see.
So another item of note is that several notices have been upgraded or updated with template toolkit syntax. And if you remember 2 or 3 conferences ago, George and I went off about notices and slips and the lack of information about template toolkit. Now Koha is moving full steam ahead at incorporating that into their notices.
Yeah, it was at the conference, the koha-US conference in Portsmouth.
Yes.
Right before that, not long before that, somebody in Bugzilla had said, why don't we just eliminate all of the bespoke Koha syntax for notices And my response, and we talked about this at that conference in Portsmouth, was, you're getting rid of something that has halfway okay documentation and replacing it with something that has no documentation for users. And my advice to the community was, could you at least, if we're going to go to template toolkit, could we develop some more documentation for it? And the communities responded. And so now they're kind of moving forward with getting everything out of the hungry alligator syntax and into the template toolkit syntax. And
Also known as the tipsy owl
yes, and
syntax.
so we talked about it at the Portsmouth conference, and we talked about it at the Round Rock conference, and there's been a lot of improvements, and I'm excited about this too, to get
Yes, I
onto
actually
template
took on
toolkit.
this year. I had to revamp one of my slips, and I did it almost completely in template toolkit. There was one thing I couldn't do, but I still had to use some not jQuery, JavaScript for. But otherwise, it's nice because template toolkit has that logic, but also has access to information, and so it can replace a lot of your JavaScript and
Yeah,
that hungry alligator syntax. So it does the job of both, and so it helps clean things up, and you're only having to deal with one thing rather than two other elements, which is really nice.
yeah.
Um, Another item that we'll mention briefly here is Select2 selections. They've made improvements throughout Koha, but with Select2, but now we have Select2 options for like when you're working with reports.
Yeah, there's a bunch of places where Select2 is going to come into Koha, and I like it a lot. And I actually created a sandbox, and so I'll share this. I've got a sandbox running, and I did a report in it that uses Select2. So um, I'm sharing the wrong screen, aren't I? Do you see?
I see SQL.
Okay, I'm sharing the right one. It's the controls are on the wrong screen. Okay, so this is a test report on a sandbox that is running 2505. And so I've just got a really simple query that's getting branch code, branch name, and address from the branches table. And I've got a where statement in here that says where branches branch code. And instead of an equals or a like, it's got in. And then I've got choose your library. And normally what I would do is I would say equals, choose your library, and then a pipe and branches. But here I'm doing in, branches, colon, in. And what that's going to do is it's going to let me select multiple libraries at once. So let
Mm-hmm.
me run this. And I've got the choose your library box here like you normally would see. But then I can go Fairfield, Liberty, or I can click here and then hold down the control button and select several.
Right.
And then when I click run, it's going to get the values for all of those. So it's a way of doing more. Because if you're just using a value out of branches, like if you're doing equals pipe branches, it's just going to give you a list of all the branches and you can only select them one at a time.
Right.
And if we look at the SQL code here, what it's doing is it's saying where branches, branch code is in, and then it's got this array of different values here. And so
Right.
that's what this is doing, is it's giving us an array of values. And that is a huge change for how you can write reports.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's a great change here.
I love this, but I also have a hard time with it because
Ah,
our developers have taken two different approaches for multi-select. You've got the Select2, which is great. You do have to remember to hold that control key down if you're going to select multiple things. so you don't have to keep opening it back up and selecting
Right,
something. But they have a different way of selecting things, like your OPAC suggestion unwanted fields there right in the middle of the screen, or the borrower's
right.
unwanted field, where they replaced that text box where you separated things with pipes and you had to come up with the names yourself. They gave you this modal where you just check off the things that you want. I would have personally preferred that they did something like this, but I don't know if it's because the report is so dynamic and it could run off the page potentially or whatever. I wish it could have been that interface. I like that a lot more than the having to scroll through things. Um, it's just like all there. And they do have, yeah, they have some lists that are longer and does scroll a little bit, but I like this interface a whole lot more than the Select2 personally.
Yeah,
So just my personal preference. Why they're doing it two different ways, I don't know.
it probably has to do with programming. That's Select2 is I believe it's a jQuery plugin, and so I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, but this is an improvement over just getting a drop down and running a report based on one value, and then running the report again with a different value and combining the two.
Yeah,
So you're saying it could look better, it could be a different kind of interface, and it could probably, but even with this interface the way it is, it's an improvement, I think.
it is.
So
So don't get me wrong, developers, I am appreciative of it, but down the road, if we could get all on the same page about how to do multi-select, that would be awesome. Another thing that stood out is that there were several issues with the Bootstrap upgrade in prior versions of Koha. When they moved over to Bootstrap, one of the things that suffered a lot was they dealt with issues with check-ins, but also with holds and transfers being triggered. Initial triggers worked fine, but if you scan it again, when it had already been triggered, it wasn't coming up with the right interface or with an interface at all. And so there was, you had to scan it twice for something to work. And it was a little wonky. And so there was a few things that needed to be repaired after that. So thank you to everybody that commented on those bugs and let them know that those were issues. Those have been fixed. If you're one of the lucky ones, some of us had that backported, but it's definitely solid now.
cool.
And this isn't an exhaustive list of all the features and things that are coming up in 2505. There are a ton of bugs we won't even go over in here. Seems like there's a lot more bugs than usual that they've fixed. Not not to say that it was packed full of bugs, but just a lot of things that they addressed this time around. So thank you, developers, for all the fixes that you've done. But George and I have a few items that we selected from the slew of fixes. Well, not necessarily fixes, but new features, changes that stood out to us. So we're going to go over those. So George, you have 4 things that stood out on the top of your list, and I have 4 that I'm going to go over. So why don't you go ahead and start?
Well, this one I'll go over pretty briefly, but because Jesse and Nick on our little sister podcast, videocast, Monday Minutes, they did a video on it just this week. And so there's a new system preference Elasticsearch boost field match that will push. So in the change to Elasticsearch from Zebra, one of the things that changed is that the exact title matches no longer became like in Zebra.
Priority.
If you had an exact title match, it would get pushed to the top of the results. And Elasticsearch wasn't doing this. So this new this new system
It boosts the
preference
ranking.
will boost the ranking of things that have an
Yes.
exact title match, so they'll appear higher on the list of results in Koha. So
Awesome.
we'll have the link to that video in here, and so you can go watch Jesse and Nick talk more detail about that change. So
Great.
um, the next one I wanted to mention is one that Neckles helped pay for, and so I mentioned this to a bunch of people because I'm really excited about it. I've been wanting this in Koha since I was at Latah County Library in Idaho, because the ValNet Library Consortium, I worked at a library that had 7 branches. The Virtually every library in the ValNet Consortium when I was there had multiple branches. The only one off the top of my head I can think of that didn't have multiple branches was Lewiston. And so the problem for us here, we don't have as many. I only have 2 multi-branch libraries in NextSearch catalog. But we do use the system preference local holds priority.
Yep.
And we have it set to give priority for filling holds to the patrons whose pickup library matches the item's home library. And those are the only options. It's give or don't give in pickup library or home library, and matches holding library or home library. So in the upgrade, um, let's do this quick. The new options here, we've doubled the number of options.
Nice.
So we can give the library priority, we can give the library, then the library group priority, we can give the library group priority, or we can say don't give priority. So give library priority to pick up library when the item matches the home's library. That's what Neckles is doing now. What we want is give library group priority.
Mhm.
So this works in conjunction with uh, the library groups.
I just started working with that particular library groups functionality, which is really nice.
Yeah, so I've got 2 groups that I've already created in preparation for this. Donovan County Hold Group, and it's got my 4 Donovan County libraries in there, and I've got my school district libraries in another group. And so the way this will work, if when we give the library group priority for filling holds to patrons whose pickup library matches the item's home library. So it says there's a note here that says if a group option is selected, then the patron control and priority control will be based on pickup library group matches the home library group. So what this means for us is currently, if you're in Donovan County and you're at the Troy Library has an item, and there are multiple holds on it, like it's the new James Patterson book. And so the Donovan County Troy branch item will fill all of the requests at the Donovan County Troy Library first, and then it can fill holds at any other library once all of those holds are filled. That's the way it currently is. What we want all 4 of these Donovan County branches. We want all of those items to fill any hold at those 4 libraries before they go out to fill holds at any place else. And that's what this enhancement does.
That's great.
The other,
That's a lot like what Overdrive does when you are linked with
yeah,
other outside libraries. You know, they'll fulfill the libraries that are subscribing first, and then if there's no requests within their group, then they'll let outside groups request those
right.
items or get those. So that's really nice.
And the other option here is library, then library group. So in that case, and that's not the way that Neckles is going to do it, but this is the way the Clams Library Consortium in Massachusetts, this is what they want from their system. And so the way that would work is going back to that Troy library example again. If we had it set this way, the Troy copies would fill all of the Troy requests first, and then they would fill the requests at all of the other libraries in the group next, and then they would be available for any other library system-wide. So it adds another layer there.
This is just huge. I know that you and I have wanted what you more than anybody from Valnet. You've wanted a feature like this back from the very beginning when we got into Koha.
Yeah.
This is absolutely wonderful. It's taken a long time to get here, and now it's finally here. And it's like I'm really excited because we've needed that group functionality for a very long time. This really um, speaks to the needs of consortiums of groups.
Right. And that's when I was at Valnet, I proposed this to the Valnet directors several times. And the issue was always, yes, we want this, but no, we can't pay for it. There wasn't enough money available there to pay for it. So when I came to Neckles, it was important, but not as important because we only have these two groups. And so we made a commitment that said if anybody else wants to fund the rest of it, we would fund 20% of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Clams joined, they really wanted it. And they're in a more difficult situation than either of us have ever been in because what they want is what they're thinking of are in terms of islands. So they want the request to fill the home library first, and then other libraries on the island second, and then it's allowed to go off of the island because many of their libraries are on islands. And
Yeah,
so it's a huge geographical barrier for them to ship things off the island. And so this way they've got this ability to say, fill the needs of the library that owns the item first, the other people on the island second, and then the rest of the consortium third. And that's what really they're getting out of it. And so I'm really happy that they were willing to help pay for this. So
that makes sense too, in that this might open up some doors for libraries that are sharing in the same region. Like we've had a distance barrier between Valnet and uh, our current consortium here, and it was that distance. It's like it didn't make it practical for us to be shifting things around constantly. But if you had something like that there, then it might make more sense to join forces in a system, maybe. But
yeah, when I was in Idaho in the Valnet consortium, I think the greatest distance you could go would have been from the top of your consortium to the bottom of the Valnet consortium was close to 325 miles. And that's a huge geographical barrier just to get some Harlequin romance paperback, from the 70s. Is that those are always the things that were that go out to fill those kinds of requests. But being able to like create like spheres of fulfillment is one way you could describe this. It's a big
yes,
change. So
yes.
the last thing I had on my list, well, actually, I guess I've got two things
Yep.
left on my list. So and I didn't pull up an example of this one yet. Let's see. This is adding. Let me just find a random item. Oh,
Put dogs in.
message.
Wow.
Are there no items in this database, I wonder?
Oh, you're not oh, wait a minute. Huh. That's weird. Try going through a regular search and not advanced. That's strange
Yeah.
that it's not working in
Well, let's see. Okay.
the sandbox.
Maybe there are no items in this sandbox.
That is odd.
It's an empty sandbox. Okay. Well, I guess there aren't any examples in this sandbox. Let me just look up the good old handy Good old Day of the Jackal. Here's our copy of Day of the Jackal, and it's not checked out to anybody, so that's good. Currently, the shelving location is in the home library column underneath the
The
home
library.
library name.
Yeah.
And after the upgrade, there will be a separate column for shelving location. That is, you know, that is something I've wanted for a long time here at Neckles, because we use our paradigm for how to find an item is we tell patrons, you want to look at the home library, the shelving location, because we only have three. The shelving locations we use are adult, children's, and young adult. So you need to know the library, the shelving location, the item type and the collection code, and then author title call number. That's how you find something. And so being able to split those into separate columns is a first step to what I really want, which I really want to be able to reorder the columns. And the Koha OPAC has had a separate column for shelving location for at least 4 years, 3 years, something like that. It's been a separate column for a long time. But now we have the ability to configure the columns. We can choose which columns are visible and which columns aren't visible. And that's the next step I would like to see, is the ability to reorder the column so that we can put them in the order that we actually want them in for us.
This is
So
another one of those things that I have a mixed feeling about because, um, while I get the need to be able to sort by that particular column, that particular information, it adds another column which eats up some real estate, which is,
yeah,
when you add more columns, it makes it a little bit more challenging. It would be nice if they could keep that stuff together like it is here, what you're showing here, but have some capability of sorting within that information rather than having to separate it out by columns. But that could pose as more of a challenge than just a simple table. But it does make it a little bit more interesting the more columns that you're adding. You can only add so much, and then it just becomes unruly. It becomes like circ rules.
yeah. And there are a lot of columns that we already have hidden. So um, one of the things I've thought about is maybe writing some script that would not eliminate but reduce the side, like collapse the sidebar, so that unless you hover over it, the sidebar disappears, giving you some more space on the page. But those are things I thought about that I haven't done anything with.
Yeah,
But that's something as
I've always
small
wanted
of
some basic information showing, just what you need to see at a glance. But if you need a little bit more information, it would be nice to be able to hover over it and have something, pop up with more details.
yeah,
Um, that, that to me is a little bit more user friendly. I just need to see what I need to see. I don't always need to see the date last borrowed or, the public notes or, barcodes or whatever. But, if I need that information, I could always hover over it and
yeah.
without having to click in it.
So as small of a change as that is, just for me, that's great. I like the idea of having that stuff in a different column. And the last one, this is one of those Koha enhancements that I really, really love. So I'm back in the test server. There will be the ability to add custom fields to the library record, similar to the way we can add patron extended attributes to a patron record in the patron interface. And so the way that looks is if we go to administration and where is it? Libraries. I looked this up last night so I would know how to do it, and now I've already forgotten where it is.
So right
But
off the bat, we know it's
here it
not
is.
intuitive.
Additional fields. It's at the very bottom. Additional fields. So this is where you can go in
Oh,
and
wow.
define. There are additional fields available for invoices, for order baskets, order lines, and this one is under libraries. So you can go in and create additional fields to go into the library record, and you can connect those to authorized values. And I haven't set any up yet, but it looks like really interesting. And we were just talking before we started recording. We did a video about this where um, we did a video about this maybe a year ago where I said, this is how we're using some of this data. So let's
You're
go to,
repurposing some of the fields that you don't use.
yeah. So we use, I renamed I think this is address line 3, and I renamed it director/ILL contact.
Uh-huh.
I renamed country to KLE code, which is our Kansas Library Express Courier system. So we can put the code there because we need to use that in a couple of different places. So, there's a limit to the number of fields that you can put in the library record existing. And you and I were talking, and I said, I want to have a field that's called courier code to put the courier code. And you said, well, we use hubs, so we don't use codes. And I said, we use hubs too, so I can add that as another field. So, we can put all this information in the library record in a way that makes sense rather than having to rename and repurpose and redesign a limited number of fields. We can just put in whatever fields we want without having to go to the community and say we want to add new fields to the library form. We can, and having that be a part of everybody's koha, we can just customize the fields that we use based on the fields that we need in our library.
Great.
So
All
I'll
right.
stop sharing and I'll let you start talking about the things that
Actually,
you're excited about.
if you can keep driving, that would be helpful.
Okay, I can try.
um, so the first thing on my list of my top
Oh,
four is that there's a bug that will allow all notes in the patron account transactions table to be editable,
so
which
I
is
actually have a patron on the sandbox that I created that has fines on it, oddly enough.
I
So
don't know how many
yeah,
times we've had something in the accounts and we didn't know enough information about. We couldn't do anything about it, and this gives us some flexibility.
yeah, there's an edit button in all the note fields, and you can go in and edit the notes. This is part of another enhancement that I don't know what you know about, but right now, if you do like
Oh, those action buttons are a mess right now.
if you click on if in Koha 2411, if you click on apply discount, you can apply a discount, but you can't add a note. But in 2505, that you can add a note from here in this transactions table. That's a new feature.
Yeah.
And when you cancel a charge, you can add, there's a place now to add a note in every place you go in one of these. When you pay, cancel, void, issue a refund, all of
It is
these fields
so
now have
helpful.
notes. Um,
Imagine that, sharing information, explaining what's going on rather than somebody having to guess and hunt down people and ask questions. Oh my gosh.
so this is why I have a love-hate relationship with the edit button. My concern at some of our libraries is somebody going in and editing something um, that they shouldn't be editing. And so that's something that I'm going to have to deal with because right now, you can, when you're making a payment, you can leave a note over here. Um, and when you click on pay, you've got the ability to add a note here. So right now you can make those notes, and then once they're done, they're done. You can't edit them in the current version. But now there's the ability to edit them. So that's one of the fears that some of my libraries have, is that what if I put a note there and then somebody that says, this person is given a one-time discount or whatever, and then somebody goes in there and edits the note or modifies the note.
Yes.
There's an opportunity. As much as this can be helpful, it's also an opportunity for mischief, is what some of my libraries are worried
It
about.
would be nice if down the road that somebody would set up those permissions so that if you're creating a transaction or whatever, you can enter the note and then it's done, and then certain people have the ability to go and edit after the fact.
Well, our system is set up so that, like, the messages, when you add a message here to a circ message, those can only be deleted by staff at the library where it was created. So maybe that would be an option, would be to come up with a way to say that the notes can only be edited. And I think that's a system preference, to say that those messages can only be deleted by the library that creates them. Maybe there's a way we can make it so that these notes can only be edited at the library where they're created. That would be
I,
one
I
option.
can I can see the ability to do some of this through jQuery.
Yeah,
So maybe that's a future video.
sure.
Um, Another item I had on here, the second one I had, was add patron expiration email to patron messaging preferences. So there are notices that you don't have uh, full control over. Patrons don't have those options. You don't have those options. They're just done. And in prior versions, the patron expiration email just goes through email. Now it's added in the patron messaging preferences, and so now we have that ability. And I think you might have to turn on a preference for this. I'm not sure.
I'm guessing you do, because I don't see it in there on this
I think
sandbox.
there's another bug that talks about that, um, where you have to turn on a preference. They wanted to make that more like out of the box, so you have to opt in for that particular functionality, more like previous versions. So I do think that there is a preference for that, and silly me, I didn't make note of that. Um, you might search the preferences.
Here it is. Oh, well, let's see. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Member expiry notice. Okay, so maybe we have to turn this
No,
part.
that's how long before it expires, I think.
Oh,
But try just expire and see if, or
oh, I guess I need to.
expiry.
Oh, well, currently there's no, if there's no date in this field, it will never send a message. So maybe you
Okay.
just have to define the message. Yeah, you have
Oh,
to
there it
define the
is. I
message
saw it.
period.
Yep, there you go. Okay.
And so once that's there, then you have to have the message expiry. You have to have a number set in that system preference. Otherwise, it's not going to send any messages. And if it's not going to send any messages, then why
Now
do you
that I
need to be able to
remember,
turn it on or off?
the other bug was about whether or not you could force this to be uh, required, so that you couldn't not get
Ah,
a notice. So um, there's another feature or preference where you can make it required, and they don't have the option. So, but this one, um, if it's done properly, it should allow you to indicate what transport method you would like.
right.
So,
Since we're in the sandbox and it hasn't been set up with SMS or any other types of notices, the only option here is email. So
yeah.
yeah, that's really cool.
Um, then there is the bug 35028, add OPAC self-registration alert on staff interface main page. Now, I marked this as one of my top, Although, when I'm thinking through this, our workflows, um, this would this seems like a step backwards to me in workflows rather than a step forward. While I do like, libraries noting, when things have been done on the patron end and need attention, it depends on what your workflow is. I guess if you are getting self-registrations and you want to assign cards and have that stuff all ready to go for when the patron walks in, this is going to be a good thing for you. You'll get alerts as to when people register. Our workflow here is a little bit different. We say register and then go to the library of your preference and pick up a card, because what we'll do is we'll search your name, and doing that allows us to see, oh, you already have a card, or you've done this multiple times. Let's clean that up, or let's just get you a new card because you're registering for a new account and everything, and we'll set you on your current account. So when you're doing that through the alerts, I fear that some of those duplications might get missed in that kind of a workflow. So, but
Right.
it is nice that we were getting alerts. We have that option to have those alerts. So, yay for alerts. Then the last thing on my list is bug 25947 to improve locked account message in brief patron info in staff interface. And what this means is you have the ability to lock up an account when there are a certain number of failed login attempts. So you can set the number of failed login attempts before it locks an account. We set this, but one of the most common things that happens, because it doesn't happen all the time, staff say, what do I do now? It says it's locked. I don't see anywhere to unlock it. What they don't remember is that the password needs to be changed.
Right.
So the new improved messaging says, oh, there's been X amount of failed attempts, which is the number that you set in your system. You need to reset the password, and it gives you a link to go and reset the password. So this is a huge improvement, because it was just lacking knowledge of what to do and lacking explanation. So this is going to be huge for improving the workflow of this particular feature.
Yeah,
Um,
I have custom code on my system so that when a patron is locked out, it puts a message there that says follow these steps, and it's got a link in it to our instructions on how to unlock a patron account if they want to go that far. But it reminds them you've got to click this button and do these things to unlock the account.
Yeah, and I guess if you're not in this version, it's an easy enough jQuery thing to add to your system. So,
It's jQuery I'm looking forward to getting rid of.
yes, anything that they bake into the system is, you know, easier on our jQuery for sure.
Yeah.
Um, this is also one of those features, the locked features, where I'm kind of it's today I'm talking about a lot my top enhancements, but at the same time I'm talking about the things that are mixed bags for me, because this feature, while I implement it, I also find it a little peculiar as to why we do it. Because if somebody's attempting to log into an account over and over and over and it locks them out, it's like, well, okay, you could change the password. That's not going to stop the attempts. It seems like it's more productive to change the borrower number or something where that account is not getting, somebody's trying things out more and more and more. Yes, you're changing the password, but somebody can keep trying the password and keep locking you out, which, maybe you're locking yourself out. But that's what the forgot my password whole thing should be about. So I'm kind of perplexed as to how this really helps.
Well, I guess the way I think about it is, if somebody is trying to break into the system and they keep hitting the password lock, um, then it's preventing them from hacking it. After we have ours set to
to
5.
keep
So if
trying. Yeah.
somebody tries 5 times, so if somebody were out there and they knew that, like, and they know somebody's or they've got somebody's library card number, and they get 5 tries to crack into the system, and if they don't get it on those 5 tries, then it prevents them from trying anymore. And so when, what I personally would do is when the patron comes in and says, my card's locked out, I've got these failed login attempts. I might actually suggest to them, let's change your barcode. Let's give you a new barcode. Let's, if it keeps happening, I would certainly do that. And I have had this experience where a staff account, a staff member at one of my libraries was terminated, and they were upset. And fortunately for us, the library director, as soon as they terminated this person, called, and I helped them reset their password for that login account at that library. And then repeatedly, that former staff member kept trying to log into the system again and again and again. And after about the third time that they got locked out, I said, let's change the username and the password. And then the problem stopped. And so the value of that for us is that we knew somebody was trying to break in. We knew it wasn't a staff member, we were pretty sure it was a former staff member, and we were able to circumvent that. And they only got 5 tries to break into the system and do whatever kind of stupid thing they were probably going to try to do before they got blocked. So
Right.
it used
Mhm.
to be, before the password lock was available, it used to be you could just keep hammering away at it for weeks if you wanted to until you got in. And so this
And that
way,
does make sense. Yeah, it
yeah,
kind of stops the attempts in their tracks.
yeah,
Just so you know, this is the message. I did lock out a patron. This was the message. It just used to just say this right over here: account has been
yeah,
locked.
account has
That's
been
all
locked.
you would see. And now we've got this up here, which is really nice, and a link to change the password. And I do want to walk through this real quick here. Let me um, generate something here. Well, I am going to need to that to the side for a second. And I wanted to show what that looks like. So I'm saving the password. They are now unlocked. I'm going to go over to the OPAC, which timed out. Okay.
There you go.
So, okay. Put in that. And if I type in some password, I don't know what it is. So it gives you this message. And I'm going to do it again, which should lock me. But really, the message doesn't change, which is interesting. So, you can keep trying. It doesn't tell you, hey, you've locked the account.
And I'll tell you exactly what's going on there. It used to say your account has been locked. And I think it used to say I think it used to say the number of attempts. And somebody said, if they know the number of attempts, and if it tells them that they're locked, that the account's been locked, they're going to stop trying. And so it's a security thing to not tell the person who's trying to break in that the account's locked. Because if it is a bad actor trying to get in, and they just keep trying and trying, and they'll just keep trying and trying and trying after it's locked, without it ever saying to them, you're locked, give up, then they know how many times it takes to attempt. So this way, they never know if they've reached the maximum or not.
Yeah.
So I remember when that change happened, because I remember thinking, well, it would be nice if it told people when they had reached their limit. And then it was a bug. It was a few years ago, and I don't and I when I saw that they were saying it's a bad idea to tell people how many attempts they get, then that made sense to me then. So.
Yeah. So,
And unfortunately, my experience. So one of the things that Neckles did is it used to be that every patron or staff member, everybody that could log into Koha, those password lengths and the password complexity was a system-wide preference. And so Neckles is the one that funded the development that said, that moved the password complexity and the password length into the patron category fields so that we could define for most of our patrons what they want is they want their password to be 1234 or 2468. They
yeah,
want it to be simple, and for many of our libraries they use the last four digits of the patron's phone number or their birth month and birth date, like 0505, and so the patrons kind of want something that's simple to get into the system, which I can kind of understand, but I wanted it to be much more complicated for staff. And so that's why we wanted to have that complex password for staff. And I've got them currently set, I think, to 12 characters.
hmm
Um, so, we wanted some more complexity there, just for the sake of, the issues like I told you about with the library where we had the former staff member trying to break in. So I like those kinds of features that are making it hard for everybody. But the issue becomes when people accidentally lock themselves out of the account. They say, well, you're doing it just to be mean to me. And it's no, we're not doing it to be mean to you. We're doing it because we have a history with people getting fired and then going in and doing mischievous things that they shouldn't do. We've had 2 or 3 incidents at our 50 libraries where people, after they've been let go or terminated, have gained access to the system to try to get up to mischief. And that's what we want to do, is we want to stop those people.
so yeah, I'm all for improving security, and thank you for helping me understand that little bit about why we do this. I get that
Yeah,
now, and I can kind of see it, but it's not always evident. And I guess when it's not always evident to us, it's not always evident to those
it's
that are trying
less.
to do harm.
Yeah, it's less evident. Yeah.
So anyways, again, this is not an exhaustive list of what's going on in 2505. We do encourage you to go look at the release notes. Plus, there have been fixes since the original 2505 was released. So this is nowhere near exhaustive. Please go check it out. Take a look. Let us know what are some of your favorite features. Reply back to this video, or reach out to us on Mattermost and talk to us about what you'd like to hear about. We'll definitely put it on the list of ideas to talk about and bring up in future videos. So please check us out on YouTube and check us out in Mattermost. Reach out to us. Let us know what you think. We will talk to everybody again in 2 weeks.
See you all later.